wake up in the morning, the very first, thing she'd open up her eyes, and she'd be right on the table there. Would be a statue of the Blessed Virgin and Paul Bryant's picture right there. Or somehow or other, how did it? No, I think she finally put the Blessed Mother in front of Paul Bryant and said, "See, I can't just see you wake up first thing in the morning." But he liked her chili, and he'd always find a way to stop by her for a few minutes and get a bowl of chili.
That's so neat.
He always let me know, when he'd be coming by.
So she'd fix the chili. Talk, Jim, a little bit about, we're talking about Paul Hornung. Talk a little bit about his recruitment. You mentioned it about Kentucky and Notre Dame hiding him out and so on. Talk a little bit about that. How'd that go on and so on?
Well, I wasn't in on the actual too much of it, except just what the scuttlebutt would be and everything. And Hornung all he had to do was he could have gone, boom, yeah, go here. He could go anywhere he wanted to go.
Sure.
I mean, he was just that lottery guy, lottery pick, there. And it generally boiled down to University of Kentucky and Notre Dame. And like I said, he wanted to go to Kentucky. He really did. But the powers that be got a hold of him, and I don't know where they took him, but it must have been a awful big party. But anyway, he ended up. But the big factor, of course, was his mother wanted him to go to Notre Dame. And she was a dominant part of his life and everything, and was till the day she died, as a matter of fact. And but I think that all things, even that, if it wasn't for the innovative recruiting that they did, I think he probably would have ended up at Kentucky. And because that's where he wanted to go. I know he wanted to go there.
Did Bryant's leaving have anything to do with? Well, I'm not sure of the timeline in there, but when?
Well, let's see. I don't know about that. Except it might have been a little bit of reverse English on that. It might be that Bryant might have left because he didn't get some of those guys.
That could be.
Yeah,
that could be.
Because when he left there, he went down to Texas A&M. Mm-hmm. Left Kentucky for Texas A&M. He didn't go to Alabama.
Right.
And I think was very successful down there. I really don't remember too many details about any of that, but of course he went to Alabama, of course, back to his alma mater, and I guess he planned to stay there, but I'm not really sure why. There were other things that were going on, I think, too. I think some of maybe his policies and something like that was starting to ruffle a few feathers, and he might have run into a little bit of a flack over
political
that.
Deal, yeah.
And but I can't really say firsthand knowledge on it.
Hornung and Cheryl Sipes were good friends, as I understand.
Yeah, they were extremely, and still are, very, very good friends. And Sipes was a little bit more on the reserved side than Paul. Paul was so outgoing and everything. Sipes a little bit more reserved, but equally intelligent. Another one with real, plenty of brains. Run like a deer. Oh my! But a little bit on the fragile side. He big. He was 190, pretty close to 200 pounds, but a little bit on the fragile side. That's what happened up at Notre Dame. He got all banged up there, his hips and everything. Hornung, nothing ever happened to him. I mean, he was just one of those things. He was like an ox, and it's nothing ever happened. where Cheryl was pretty much on the fragile side. But they waited through all Notre Dame, and Cheryl, I don't know, it might have been something to do with General Electric, I don't know, but Cheryl moved to the West Coast and became highly successful on the West Coast. Had a couple of family tragedy, had one really bad family tragedy happen. He was out with either a customer or with some, he and his wife were cruising on a private yacht when their son was killed in an automobile accident. And it was like 2 or 3 days before they could reach him, and they didn't even know for 2 or 3 days. And that kind of a thing happened. And I know he was pretty much subdued after that for quite some time. But I really never got to see very much of Cheryl after that. When he moved out to the West Coast, I never got to see much of him.
Did he play basketball also?
He played basketball, and he didn't play much baseball, but he's a record holder in track. I mean, back in those days. Up at Notre Dame, I'm just not exactly sure. After he got hurt, I don't think he played anything after he got hurt up there. I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
What you mentioned that Hornung was a very outstanding basketball player as well as football, and I remember listening to a game when University of Kentucky played Notre Dame and Hornung was playing basketball, and that was probably his junior year or something at Notre Dame. But I was always impressed with the fact that he was playing both sports and was good at both of them.
Because they didn't. Of course, they were kind of going through some tough times up there, I guess, at the time, and I kind of lost track of him. I just know that he did play, all the sports. I didn't know that he played so much both ways up at Notre Dame, defensively as well as offensively. And the way I found it was I was watching, one of the deals on television, like 3 o'clock in the morning, and, one of these things that was highlights film from 1954. And the film was about all different schools. It wasn't just about, one school. And this was a highlight as they were playing some team, and the opponent of this team was Notre Dame, and they were running this completed pass that they had run, and were closing in for a touchdown, and showed Hornung made a great defensive play and stopped it, short of a touchdown, and made the tackle with on this pass play, and they caught the pass and was in the open, and was challenged with Hornung was somewhere around maybe the 30-yard line, and he had a blocker in front of him, and Hornung was playing. He kept kind of pushing him towards the sideline, getting him towards the sideline, giving ground all the time, and pretty much the way it happened, after he had him right against the sideline about the 5 or 6 yard line, he just went right into through a block and everything, right into the blocker, and carried all 3 of them, took them out of bounds on around the 5 or 6 yard line. It was a great play, and they weren't making anything to do about that particular part of it. But the big deal was the guy had made some kind of a circus catch on the ball, But the defensive play, and I looked at there and I saw his number, for crying out loud. And they ran another play, and sure enough, he was in there playing defensive halfback. And I just didn't understand that.
Sure.
There wasn't any need for it. The thing I can remember both about, there were that year that Hornung graduated from Flagey, there were other equally great players. Maybe not equally, but I'm talking about other real great football players. And it was thing that I remember so much about it was each one of them that their family life was so solid. Sipes' family would, you know, he had a mom and dad and two grandparents, and they were, you know, as solid as a rock. Mike McDonald, who later became a Supreme Court justice, Kentucky Supreme Court judge, retired now. His mother and dad were, you know, just solid people. Or, you know, I can remember all of the real good ones, the Nord kids. They weren't all the same economic level, but they were all solid parents. They all came from great households, and that made a big impression on me. Snellenberger came from a modest household, but just solid as a rock. Snellenberger, I knew him from the time he was 10 years old. His father was an independent contractor that worked for my dad as a mechanic, and had his premises were on our, you know, at our place. He used our garage facilities and everything. And Howard would come by in summer vacation from the time he's 10, 11 years old, and come by and work as a mechanic for his dad. I mean, he didn't make any difference what he had to do, take one of them apart or whatever it was. He could do it. And now, of course, his personality, it was just opposite from Hornung. I mean, you couldn't get him. You asked him, "How's everything going, Howard?" You know, grunt was the most, you know, all he'd do. And but man, you throw him a football, and if he could touch it, he'd catch it. And a little thing, you know, if you heard him how he is nowadays. I mean, you talk to him and say, "Hello, Howard," and you'll get a soliloquy, you know. I didn't know this, but when he was hired as the head coach of the University of Miami, that they put him through, or had him to go through a public speaking or some course that they gave him down there. Right. A full year he was in this course at the University of Miami about public speaking. And boy, it sure did take, because you can't shut him up now. And incidentally, I do keep in touch with him. I get an email or a telephone call or something when he's got something special he likes to brag about a little bit. And he's had some tragedy in his life too. He lost that son who fought cancer for 20 years, I guess. And but he's right into the social world and down at Boca Raton. He's into the heavy social. Well, his wife is actually Beverly.
Beverly, yeah.
And she's a nice person too. But I get a telephone call from him, or I'll call him when you have a big win or something like that. And I never have ever gotten it, but you remember that clip that he sent that they did from that party?
Yeah.
And that guy's never ever sent that to me. But that or the one from Jim Clancy, either one of them, I don't have that. But he was, he'll right to this day, he'll say that the toughest and most telling thing that he ever had in any of his football career was his high school days at Flagey. He says it was the toughest thing he ever had. Yeah, he'll still talk about that.
Now, did he and Hornung play together?
They played together for 2 years, but Howard was a year ahead of Hornung.
Okay.
Howard graduated in 1952, and Hornung graduated in 1953 from high school.
Okay.
So they were a year apart.
So Hornung to Snellenberger was a passing combination then.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Capital.
Yeah, they were a passing combination, and but actually, Hard was an excellent pass receiver and everything, but he was a vicious blocker. Oh, I mean, he would block, particularly when he blocked close into the line of scrimmage, a linebacker or down lineman. He was vicious on the line, and but he didn't have outstanding speed. But the year they beat Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl, when Oklahoma was undefeated and national champs, he caught the was it the tie game that they played, or was it the win game?
I think the one they won. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the one they won. He's the one that caught the pass.
Yeah.
I think it was in the snow too, or something.
Yeah.
Or in the rain or something.
Well, I know
it wouldn't
that
have been the snow, that's for sure. But
I've heard a game that he caught the winning touchdown pass. I was wanting to say it was against Tennessee, but that could be wrong about that. Maybe it was the Oklahoma game, but I remember that he was standing alone in the end zone. And
yeah, I'm not so sure it was against Tennessee, because I'm not sure he ever beat Tennessee.
Yeah, might not have been.
Yeah.
Bob Hardy was the quarterback at Kentucky. And
yeah.
He ran one way, and Snellenberger was alone in the end zone, and finally they found him, and it was scored. Did you sense with Hornung and Snellenberger and Sipes how good they were? I mean, was that, you'd seen a lot of athletes, and you'd seen a lot of, could you see how good they were?
Yeah, you could see that they were exceptional. At the time, we didn't. It was after they actually finished playing, though, that where you actually evaluated that. Mm-hmm. I mean, when the games were actually, when you're actually in the season, and the game, was you're playing the schedule and everything. I mean, it was they could get the job done, but it wasn't something you just didn't think about, because that wasn't really what you were there to be doing then. I
Sure.
mean, that was later. But when it was all over with, and they start, you realize that these kids were something special. At senior year, they had a lot of special kids down there. McDonald ended up at the University of Louisville. A fellow by the name of Paul Gehring ended up at the University of Louisville, and maybe to this day is still on staff out there. I know that he was a longtime track coach at Manual High School. His name was Paul Gehring, Gering, and he was track coach at Manual. And when Hard went there to Louisville, I think he got him to go with him. And after Hard left, I think Paul has been, and he may still be out there, I don't know, but I know that for 30 years he was the father confessor and everything to all those football players, and then made sure they got up every day and went to class and all that kind of thing, listened to their problems. I don't know what you call those guys, but Paul Gehring was involved with that. And of course, like I said, there was a fellow by the name of John Noon that went out west in something. We had a kid by the name of Jack O'Leary. He's the St. Matthews kid. And I don't know, he went to, I think he might have gone to Kentucky, but didn't stay. And I'm not exactly sure where he played some football, but he ended up in Hollywood and became a character actor in Hollywood. And he was a kind of a hippie kind of guy, and big separated front teeth and everything like that, and face like a bulldog. And did a you could sing, I sing all kinds of movies. He's always the heavy, you know. And so he did that. Gil Nord was from a solid family background of 4 or 5 brothers. One of his nephews became in the early successes at the University of Louisville. I played under I guess it was oh gosh, what the heck's his name? He still lives here and just went to work for. The guy always said, "What do you know what that tell?" Right before Petrino. What you remember who that was?
Oh, see, now you're going to get me too.
John L. Smith before Petrino.
Who?
Before Patino.
John L. Smith?
Yeah, John L. Smith.
Yeah.
He played for John L. and was first string offensive guard, and then on some of those big wins that John L. had. And right as we speak, he's Secret Service on the president's staff, or I don't know about now, but he was on Bush's staff as personal, as the security for the president. And family, looked at almost everyone who had family background was solid as rock, But I could go almost every one of them, that were involved there, and they were good kids and coachable, very coachable, and but it's an interesting point. I'm sitting there pondering that when you said, did you know where they, that they were exceptional, and at the time, I really, you didn't really think of it as being exceptional. They were a functional part of your plan and your team, and they were doing that job very well. And you didn't really give it a thought until after it was all over with and they were gone. And you see, now you can look back on it and see just how good they were.
Yeah, that's you mentioned. I'm going to go sideways here a little bit.
All right.
We've talked to all around University of Louisville and athletes there. So let's talk about Johnny Unitas, who was at U of L during those years. What's your memories associated with
We were at U of L at the same time as classmates almost. But I didn't know him. Or anything. But he came down here from Pennsylvania, and nobody else wanted him. He was just a little guy. He wasn't very big or anything. And he developed right here at the university. And the guy that actually brought him down here was a fellow that actually he was a couple of years behind. I guess we overlapped a year maybe something, but he was a couple of years behind me. But a fellow by the name of Frank Ditcher, who played for on the very first teams that when they went back to start playing after the war, would have been 46, or I don't think they had a team 45. 46 and 47, and right along in that area there, a fellow was a quarterback for them and for U of L, and he was somehow or other was very instrumental in getting Unitas to come here. I think they were from close by Pennsylvania someplace. And but Johnny Unitas was very ordinary when he first started down here. He wasn't ordinary when he left, but I guess you got to give that all to Frank Camp or to his staff. I didn't, like I said, I didn't know him. I think maybe at a gathering or something, might say, this is Troy Lovett and Jim Miller, and then that's Alicia. But I never did ever know him. Know Frank very well.
Well, another name that went by a few minutes ago, at least in reference that I wanted to ask you about, was Victor Mature. You mentioned Hollywood and actor. Talk a little bit about Victor Mature.
Well, I can give you some information about him, secondhand information. But he went to St. X, and he was a very, very good friend, very close friend, as a matter of fact, with Rosemary's older brother, her oldest brother. I mean, they were classmates at St. X, and both of them were interested in theatrics. Rosemary's brother went to University of Louisville and did his undergraduates at University of Louisville, was a Phi Beta Kappa, and then went to law school at the University of Louisville, and ended up on the $1 Million Round Table with in the insurance business, and but they were very good friends. And with Victor Mature, I don't know what the dates were. I can't visualize what the dates were. I think Ollie graduated from St. X in the early 30s, 32, something like that. And when that was over with, he went on to college. Victor Mature went on to Hollywood, and the rest is history. But during the time there, he wanted my brother-in-law, Ollie, to go to Hollywood with him. He said, let's go out there and see if we can make it. And of course, Ollie didn't go. They were both active in. I think both of them were active. I don't think it was at U of L, but they were active in a theatrical group called the Catholic Theater Guild, which was really active back in those days, back in the 30s and up until the war and after the war. And it was just an amateur group of people that did theater. And Rosemary's brother was pretty good, but and he's a good-looking dude too. And he was real good friends with Victor Mature. Of course, you still run across them on the late night stuff.
Did he continue to come back to Louisville or not?
No, not as far as I don't think he came back hardly at all. I mean, I don't know about his family, whether his family he came back to visit them. I don't know.
And that was his name, Victor Mature.
Oh yeah, that's his real name. Yeah, Victor Mature.
Okay.
They were Italian, and there's a couple of brothers involved. Let's see, what was their brother's name? His brother was a football player at St. X. I can't say I can't recollect what his name is or was. But they were a big family. They lived in the out in the St. Elizabeth Parish out there in the Shelby Park area. I can tell you the street they lived on. As a matter of fact, they lived on Camp Street, out there at right off between Shelby and Preston Street.
I've always been interested that the city of Louisville has not honored him any more than they have, and maybe they did, and I wasn't aware of it. But it seemed like
to think of it, I don't.
He was such an enormous star there for a long time.
Oh yeah, he's right there.
I just always taken by him.
They had another girl. Her father worked at the L&N Railroad, and her name was Marjorie Weaver, and she made a pretty good little splash for a while, and particularly in the B movies and stuff like that. But she was. I can remember when she played, when the first movie she ever played in, where she had a featured role. And I don't know I can't remember what it was, but boy, they sure did make a splash over that, and Louisville's own Marjorie Weaver, and she's a pretty thing, and But that's an interesting question about Victor Mature. I don't think that he ever really came back ever, and I'm not. And they didn't. Nobody ever did really make a great big splash over him, I guess. I mean, from a family standpoint.
While we're on the entertainment people, and I've forgotten whether we actually mentioned this or not, but it would be good to mention it again. When we were talking about the early days of radio here, and talk a little bit about Foster Brooks a little bit more, because we mentioned him, but I don't think we said enough about him. What?
Well, Foster Brooks was of a family of half a dozen brothers, all boys. And they lived out at right adjacent to Victory Park, right out lived around 22nd and Maple. Maple Street being about 3 blocks south of Broadway, and then there was Maple, and then Garland, and then Date Street, and then Kentucky, which were where Victory Park was. And there was Bob. There was Bob Brooks and Foster Brooks, and I'm trying to think of the one that was on WHAS television for so many years.
Tom Brooks. Cactus Tom.
Yeah. I mean, he was a staple there for so many years, and all of them were talented. Boy, I wish I could get mine in the ring like that. Sorry. I wish I could get mine in the ring like that. He goes tinkle, tinkle, tinkle. Anyway, all of them were talented in one way, some form or the other. There was, like I said, there was Tom and Bob and Foster and Pleasant. Go ahead and get that if you like.
I'll just knock it off. I think that's Carrie.
One of his name was Pleasant.
Pleasant Brooks.
Pleasant Brooks, yeah. And they were all pretty talented people. The youngest one was name was Stuart Brooks, and he was a piano genius. I'm not talking about concert piano playing, but I'm talking about the kind of guy that throw a set of spots up there and he'll play it, sight read it right off the bat. It's a little high for me. Can you transfer that? Can you transpose that down a tone or half a tone or something like that? Sure. Just a wizard on a piano, and just excellent. Was really big time demand for vocalists and different types of show business that needed that type of thing available to them. I think he did a stint, at the dinner theater for a while, and he was a great young guy. And but Foster was the first time that I became aware of Foster Brooks. He was this kid, probably about maybe 18, 19 years old, and I was 5 or 6, and the girls, my mother and her aunts and my 2 aunts were singing on WHAS. And the first time I ever saw him, of course, he was their announcer on their show, which was on a 15-minute show once a week. And he was the announcer on that show. And I'm not exactly. He ended up as a DJ with WAVE for years and years and years. I'm trying to think. I don't know what happened in between the time he was a young guy at WHS and then what happened during the war. I'm just not sure about that, but he became very prominent as in radio here with WAVE after the war, and must have been involved with some theatrics in some way, shape, manner, or form. There used to be a pharmacist down in the center part of town, down around WAVE at Preston and Broadway. There was a pharmacy right across the street, and oh boy, my memory about some names is going crazy. Troy, but this guy was, you know, they were all devotees of the Y, handball guys, and betting on everything, bet on which bird fly off the fence first, you know. And he used to have a big golf tournament every year. This pharmacist, anyway, I told the name, I can't. Oh, and he's a Jewish fella, and he had this big invitational golf tournament every year, and Foster Brook was always a big part of that. And one of the first times I ever heard him was at one of those tournaments after the banquet that night, and he did a couple of recitations at you know, the type, you know, the face on the barroom floor. Are you familiar with that? The face on the barroom floor, and the Frankie and Johnny thing, and that face on the barroom floor. I mean, he'd have you absolutely tears running out of your eyes when he'd go in that thing. You know, about the father being a drunk, and he'd paint, he'd write chalk do a portrait on the floor for a drink or something like that. That's the gist of it. And this kid comes in to try to get him home, you know. Oh man. And so then in later years, when Foster was probably in his 50s, he hit it big with his character called the Lovable Lush. And he's the funniest person whatever was. I'm sure you've heard him.
Oh, sure.
You know, sure. And he was as big time as you could get in Vegas, and
Dean Martin, I remember. Dean Martin was always a fan of.
Oh yeah,
you know, big fan.
Yeah. And and of course he did a lot of movies, and he actually did a couple of. I remember he was the leading character in a couple of a Murder, She Wrote episodes with Angela, and I think, well, I don't know how long ago he died, but I think he was a pretty good Hellraiser when he was younger and everything. But later on, when he was doing this act on the thing, he's a teetotaler. But he could be so smashed. And but that whole family was a very talented family.
Was Tom Brooks younger than Foster?
No.
Okay.
Foster was I think it was Bob, and then Foster, and then Tom.
Was Tom involved in radio before television, or did he?
Yeah.
He kind of took that over from.
Yeah, he was. I mean, just staff announcers and things like that.
Yeah.
And then he hit that thing with Randy
ATURE.
Randy ATURE.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much a takeoff on, a little bit of Minnie Pearl and a little bit of, his Howdy and all that stuff wasn't too much original about it, but a whole bunch of kids sure grew up around all that.
Sure did. Did the brothers ever perform together? Did you remember?
No,
I can't remember.
No. I don't think there was any bad blood in them between, but they were all just pretty diversified in what they did.
Foster Brooks was a good singer, was he not?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He sang pretty good.
Yeah.
Sang pretty good.
Yeah.
Bob, I don't remember Bob being anything other than a pretty good athlete. And Pleasant was more of a athlete too. But Tom and Foster and Stewart were really big time music people. And yeah, Foster could sing really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about another Louisville movie star that of a kind of a different era, but Ned Beatty. What's the any connection with Ned Beatty?
The only connection that I have with Ned Beatty was the fact that went to the University of Louisville with his brother.
Okay.
Yeah, we're at the same time. I'm trying to think of what. I can't think of what his first name is right now, but yeah, his brother was at the university and very much, didn't, just took it all in stride. He didn't make a big deal about his brother. But there's another Beatty too. Let's see, there was Ned and what's the guy that? No, what's the guy that took the part of the bank robber, Bonnie and Clyde with Faye Dunaway and
Warren Beatty.
Warren Beatty.
Warren Beatty. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're related.
Oh, really?
I think so.
I
Warren
didn't know
and Ned. I think so.
How about that? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and there's a third Beatty that was that's an actor that kind of a pushed-in face and everything. He's not, he's not one of the leading man guys, but there's another one that I don't know whether they're all brothers or not, but I'm pretty sure that Ned and Warren are brothers.
How about that? I should know that.
I might be wrong on that, but I think that's but I didn't know any of them. I mean, I knew their brothers went to school with out there, but I didn't know any one of those, and he never spoke of them very hardly at all. Of course, by that time they were just probably in their infancy too, as far as
Sure.
that was in late 40s.
Well, there was another actor who was at U of L, I think early 50s, and that's Warren Oates.
Warren Oates.
So,
Not Warren Oates, but that's the third one. But I thought was a Betty. That's the one.
Yeah, Warren Oates.
Yeah, Warren Oates. Yeah.
Warren Oates, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know him at all?
No.
Or anything about him?
No, I didn't know him.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
That was the third part. Yeah, I knew there was a third guy that was pretty prominent. He did a lot of westerns.
Yes.
Yeah, and he was good too.
Yes, he was.
Really good.
Yes,
Yeah, Warren Oates. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, Gary. Well, we've kind of come to a place that would be a nice place to stop if you want to. I rather than starting on the barber shop, I think we'll save that till next time, Jim.
Okay,
unless you want to.
What was it? There was something that. Okay, start on the barber shop. Okay, all right.
Unless you want to go on a little bit while longer, or what? We've got 15 more minutes or so.
Seems like a logic. That way we can just really start clean with barbershop and really devote the whole session next time.
That's what I'd like to do. Jim, I want you to, before we end this, have you still got your pictures there of you and the
ones I showed you earlier?
Yes. Let's put those on camera if we can here a little bit. I want to get a kind of a picture of those, and that's
Can I just
hold them
up for you?
Just hold them up, and I'll see if I can't kind of come in with
That's the same picture. Show them to you here.
Yeah, that's great.
Like this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's terrific. About what year was that, Jim, you think?
Oh, this would have been, I don't know, I think I was probably 8th grade or something, 13, may have been, 36, 37. Now this photograph would have been a little bit later than that. This would probably been around 39 or 40. This one here. And it's back, this one would be back 35, 36. Okay. My cousin here now, the deceased, was really a excellent musician.
Yeah, that's great. That's terrific.
Let me, after you crank up there, I don't know whether, let me show you a couple of things from that I got on the wall in there.
Okay.